In the new fashion of Trump's presidency, well, it's not really new, but it seems to be continuing of his, I would call it authoritative tendencies. There recently was a raid on John Bolton's house and also office, which is sometimes not reported. John Bolton is, of course, the former national advisor for Trump first, so for his first administration. But of course, what he became a bit more prominent for, or at least is recently, is basically for calling out Trump as not knowing how to do anything. He wrote a book about it, A Room Where It Happened, I think is the name of it, and is recently, of course, criticizing Trump mainly, or one of the things is, of course, his foreign policy. And as something that is a little bit different about John Bolton in sort of modern American politics is his criticism of Trump is absolutely on point, and even many objectives, I think, would agree with it. So this is one of the things we'll discuss today. And secondly is, of course, the Intel company share that the American government now has 10% of Intel is now owned by the American government, because of course this is the purpose of government, is to own publicly traded companies, or at least part of them. So we'll also talk about that today. Joining me today is Mark Pellegrino. It's great to have you here. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And Mark, I have a few videos we'll go through, one from John Bolton, one from Trump, but and few comments. But first, any of your thoughts so far?
Well, I remember during the Obama administration, Mark Levin talking constantly about the imperial presidency. I don't believe I've heard a single show where Mark Levin is talking about the imperial presidency today, even though Trump is demonstrating a wider degree of executive abuse than I think Obama could have even imagined, and more egregiously than Obama even could have imagined. This attack against which is against a political enemy, and not just a political enemy, but one who cogently, very coherently criticized Trump and who has a great deal of credibility, especially within the foreign policy community, for being a very competent man at his job. I think this is stuck in Trump's craw, and he's getting revenge. And the article suggested something that I thought was quite terrifying and should terrify even people who support Trump. Somebody within the investigation said, if there is a crime that has been committed, well, we'll bring prosecutors in and we'll begin that process. Well, why are you even searching Trump's place if there's not the suspicion of a crime being committed? You have to present evidence to a judge in order to get a warrant that enables you to go into these homes and to search for specific items. So you have to prove to the judge or to a grand jury that a crime has possibly been committed. In this case, I guess the withholding of foreign, of top secret documents, or whatever the pretense is they're using to harass this man. And to double down, Kash Patel is using the language that the left used when they weaponized the government against Trump, against John Bolton, who seems just a truly innocent victim in this debacle. Uh, this is, I mean, I could call out, I think, several, I think, overreaches of executive power that are starting to borderline on impeachable offenses. And the weaponization of the government, of course, against political enemies is one of those, I think, high crimes and misdemeanors. I think it would qualify, although Jim Valiant should be here to verify that information. So I find this a really, really terrible overstep of executive power, and it should scare everybody.
We have a super chat from Jonathan and Bonnie. Thank you so much, both of you. And yeah, so just to cover a bit more things. So this happened on Friday morning, Eastern time. So I think like 7 a.m. or something like that, where FBI raided John Bolton's home and a bit later raided his office. Now, John Bolton is not under arrest. He's not in custody. He's not facing any charges. There's no indictment. So nobody's going after him. But as you said, maybe they find something that they will want to put him, in for. This is, of course, the justification is that this is part of the ongoing national security investigation related to the handling of classified documents. Now, this goes back to, I believe, 2020, where after John Bolton's book, there was some concern, or at least Trump had some concern over the handling of classified documents. This was then pretty much dismissed under the Biden administration and was not sort of didn't they didn't seem like there was anything to go after. And now with Trump back, it's coming back again. Now, yeah, something you mentioned about Kash Patel is basically while this raid was happening, he posted on X, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission." And again, my like, if there was something mishandled, okay, you think there is something, you go after. I'm wondering to what extent they try to ask John Bolton to cooperate, because even when it comes to this handling of classified documents, oftentimes you don't know if you have I mean, that was the defense Trump tried to use. Like, you don't necessarily know what exactly, if you have a bunch of documents, what exactly is now classified, what isn't declassified. So there is a certain amount of cooperation that can happen. I'm wondering if that happened at all, or if it was, hey, maybe we can just send people there and again, this, like, no one is above the law. Well, is John Bolton trying to be above the law? Was there any trying of, like, get him to cooperate? Like, this is what's the scariest part about it. Not to, I'll go to you, Mark, and I'll just bring it one more thing. Especially if you take it with sort of recent thing, the fact that Trump does constantly talk about John Bolton specifically. Again, he's not somebody who has any power, yet seems to irk Trump to some extent. He took away his security clearance, which can be understandable to some extent, but he also took away his security detail. When we know Iranians want to kill John Bolton, and you are taking away his security clearance. Again, this is the type of stuff where it's like, do you want this guy to be killed? Mark?
Look, look, I mean, you're talking about a malignant narcissist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not qualified to make that diagnosis, but it's certainly my opinion that Trump is a malignant narcissist. And he has an extremely competent man who calls him incompetent. So that strikes at his ego. And I would say that the reason for this raid is less in the fact that there might have been shenanigans that Bolton was implied in the shenanigans, later cleared by Biden, and now Trump is bringing them back. I would say this more has to do with Bolton during the Mar-a-Lago raid saying, well, let's see how this plays out. I mean, in other words, he didn't completely exonerate Trump. He sort of went with the flow of what many of us would consider to be an overstepping of the government's use of power against Trump. Maybe not, certainly Trump was not honest about the documents and what he was holding and what he wasn't. There's a great deal of prevarication there. But I think he's more irritated at those two things, that a competent man called him incompetent, and that during a crisis in which Trump was the focus of an investigation, he didn't defend Trump. He said, let it play out and see what happens. And I think that's the real reason that Trump is going after Bolton right now.
We have a Race, who has been a member for 19 months. Thank you so much. He says they don't care for probable cause since it can't be tariffed. Well, that's yeah. I wanted to also bring up Mar-a-Lago because again, that was the case of Trump refusing to basically work with the FBI, trying to hide actually the documents until the raid actually did happen. And Trump was actually indicted for that, was indicted for mishandling the classified documents, which, again, he wasn't exonerated. The charges were dropped because he became a president. So again, like
Indeed.
trying to now claim like no one is above the law. Well, some people are above the law, which to some case, even justly, of course, like the government like prosecuting the sitting president is kind of weird. So it's understandable. But again, trying to claim that no one is above the law, especially, I mean, even if you take the history of the, the Supreme Court decision, making it even sort of making the presidents less culpable for the actions they do during presidency. Again, this is ridiculous. But
But we certainly know
yeah.
Biden is above the law. We certainly know Biden has had his palms greased by the Ukrainian governments and Chinese governments. We certainly know that he was using his son to launder money into the family. I mean, we know these things because we can connect the dots, and we have his computer. We have the son's computer asserting this. We have multiple witnesses. This is just a fact. Now, Trump, of course, likewise committed some very questionable actions with those documents. But I still wonder if now he refused to return them, but I still wonder if there was a way to get those documents back or to resolve the document issue without the smoke and mirrors of an FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, which made him a martyr in the eyes of the people because they saw him being persecuted in New York City by Letitia James and by the legal community out there. They saw terrible fines being levied against him that were completely outside of the law. They saw statute of limitations already being used up, but adding felonies to the charges in order to make the statute of limitations stick. So they saw a lot of crooked stuff going on. So now it's hard to tell who's innocent and who's guilty anymore with all the crap that is going on with the tribal warfare on both sides, weaponizing the government to make their tribe the top dog.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's what's always problematic because, yeah, if yeah, because it makes it impossible to back down, right? It's the similar thing that's I'm not sure how closely you're watching it, but apparently when it comes to Texas, the governor of Texas wanted to redraw some constituencies to basically give Republicans an edge in the upcoming midterms. And I think an interesting response came from Gavin Newsom, who said, okay, if you're gonna gerrymander, then we're gonna gerrymander to get our own seats, which is I've seen actually a similar thing in the presidential election. I'm not sure if you watched it, but there are two states that basically are splitting their electoral colleges. So the capital city has like a separate electoral college from the rest of the country. And Nebraska wanted to change that to give Trump the one electoral college that came from Omaha. And the Democratic state said, okay, if you're going to change it, then we're going to change it. So he actually doesn't get the electoral college, which, yeah, it's this like weird almost. I want to say like petty fighting, but this is like scary stuff, like that everybody's saying, okay, like everybody's gonna use nuclear bombs, basically do whatever we can to not lose the next election.
Everybody's rigging the system so that their tribe is on top, and their tribe is controlling the levers of power. They're no longer serving the American people. And what a government would look like that served the American people was one that would be hardly noticeable to you. A presidential election and congressional elections would not be important to you as a citizen of the United States because their only job would be to protect your right to property and your right to life. That would mean the legislative process would probably take a month. It wouldn't be 989 pages. There would be no massive omnibus bills. There would just be little adjustments to technologies that came along as they strove with the problem of updating law and property law to accommodate new technology. That would be it. We wouldn't see these people in our lives. They would be of no importance in our lives, but they certainly want to be important, and that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to monopolize importance in the world by rigging the game in their favor. But there is a party out there that does not believe in any of this. It's called the American Capitalist Party. Go to it, americancapitalistparty.org. On August 26th, our treasurer, Alan Thomas, will be running for city council in Argo for the fifth seat. We look forward to him winning. He's doing some great things over there. He's scaring a lot of old-time politicians. So if we get him in, he will be the first American Capitalist Party member to have an elected seat in office, and it will only go up from there, folks.
Let's actually listen to John Bolton. I think this was from a few weeks ago, if I remember correctly, but it was very prophesizing, I guess would be the word.
Before you go, we're about to talk about Trump's retribution campaign we're seeing at the FBI and the Justice Department. You're obviously on his enemies list, at least Kash Patel's enemies list. Are you worried that they're going to come after you in some way? I mean, he's hinted at it before.
Well, I think he's already come after me and several others in withdrawing the protection that we had for from the Iranians for the attack on Qasem Soleimani. So I think, and I said in the new forward to the paperback edition of my book, I think it is a retribution presidency.
Yeah, I mean, for those who saw Trump's what do you call them, like a presidential portrait where he looks truly scary. I mean, it really does seem like what John Bolton has been doing. I mean, he has been calling out the Putin coming to Alaska before it even happened, and he was right. Nothing happened. Putin basically just got Putin just got a win. You know, he visited. He was the first. I want to say he was the first Russian president who visited America in a while, but he was the only Russian president for a while anyway, so it's not like somebody else could have done so. But again, a Russian president on American soil, we got nothing out of it, and yeah, a complete betrayal of our ally of Ukraine, and again, nothing came out of it. I've seen recently, I didn't know. Oh, what's her name? Hillary Clinton. I didn't know she's still like sort of like active, but she was on one show, and she said maybe we should convince Trump that he would get a Nobel Peace Prize if he saves Ukraine from losing any territory, maybe besides Crimea, and then maybe he would actually do so.
I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to say that something Hillary Clinton says is right, but it is. He is attracted by things that are glittery and shiny, and by accolades. And that would demonstrate to him that the world holds him in the esteem that he sees himself or wishes to see himself. So that may be so if they hold out that that reward, that carrot, as the possible reward for him, pushing back against Putin. Maybe it'll happen. I also think that if somebody could convince him that Putin is owning him every time he sees him, every time he has a meeting with him, that he's the alpha dog in the room, not Trump, that also might spur him a little bit more, but possibly in an irrational direction.
I mean, I don't know. And we also have Stuart joining us today, so it's great to have you, Stuart, on
Hey,
as
Stuart.
well. We've been covering the Trump John Bolton raid, and I'll go to you, Stuart, in a second. But somebody earlier in the chat says Bolton is a neocon, but he is far more credited, he is correct far more than credited for. I'm not even sure if John Bolton is considered sort of like a neocon, because at least I think his Iraq policy was a bit better than everybody else. He pretty much said, after the fall of Saddam Hussein, drop the Federalist Papers and get out. Do not do this kind of like prolonged campaign. So again, sort of like I think painting him as a neocon might be inappropriate. But Stuart, to go to you, yeah, we've covered this a little bit, but what do you make of this whole FBI raid on John Bolton's house?
It's hard not to see it as what Trump promised he would do. I mean, he's been talking about retribution for his political enemies for years. So for him now to be like, "Oh, I don't know anything about this," is not credible. It's just not credible. That seems to me pretty clearly what's going on. I don't know obviously, not that that Bolton is innocent, but I do know that Trump doesn't give a damn about people taking home classified documents. I mean, he had a house full of them. So even if they do find something in Bolton's possession, I don't think that is credible as the reason for the raid.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned he didn't know, so let's actually, yeah, play that clip of Trump.
When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East. Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. But he really doesn't talk. He's quiet. And I'd walk into a room with him with a foreign country, and the foreign country would give me everything because they said, oh no, they're going to get blown up because John Bolton's there. He's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid.
Do you expect the DOJ to brief you on this?
Yeah, they'll brief me, probably today sometime.
And the foreign minister.
I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it. It's not necessary. I could know about it. I could be the one starting it. I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer, but I feel that it's better this way.
Foreign Minister Lavrov said.
I don't know. On some level, I could understand this, right? Of course, even as a president, you don't know about everything that's going on. You want your agencies to run independently of you to some extent. But this truly reminds me of like a mafia boss. Like, I don't know, I don't want to know about it, but deal with it. Like this is the kind of feeling I'm getting. I mean, Trump. Sorry. Mark. I mean, again, even at the end, right? I could do it. Like if I wanted to, I could go after him. But my minions are able to do so without me telling them.
Yeah, it's clearly mafioso tactics. This is the way this guy operates. I mean, he was in the real estate and construction business in New York. These are the types of people that he dealt with, and this is the type of way he thinks that business has to operate. He doesn't operate on the trader principle. He operates on a zero-sum principle where he wins at your expense. That's the way he looks at the world. And look, I can't even listen to the guy. I mean, he's so inarticulate. He's so unbelievably circular when he talks. How can anybody sit there and give this guy a microphone for 10 minutes? It's just unbearable. It's unbearable at this point for me.
Yeah, I'm with Mark. It's like physically painful.
Yeah, I mean, something I think somebody said is that Trump gets through because people talk about, Trump does this like long speeches, but somebody else said, well, Trump does speeches with like 20 words, and that's all he uses, and that's for like 3 hours. But it's also handling it well, right? Like this raid just happened yesterday, and all the Republicans already have the sort of the party line, and it's because of how much Trump repeats himself. You can watch 1 hour of Trump every week, and you basically know everything that has happened because he keeps repeating the same thing so that everybody is in line. This is something the sort of MAGA people have been done really well. This amount of basically making sure everybody knows everybody is on the same line. Because if I look on X, everybody on the right is completely united about sort of this was the right thing to do.
Look, I mean, what the right is not seeming to understand right now is every overreach of the president today is going to be used against them in the next administration. They will use every amount of power that Trump has pushed upon the opposition against them when they have the levers of power. I mean, you already see the pushback in the states. It's going to happen if they can get a candidate that can compete against JD Vance. Then this is what we're going to see is just more tribal warfare and retribution. It's just going to be a circular clusterfuck.
Stuart?
Yeah, absolutely. The Republicans are acting like the Democrats will never again gain power, which that may indeed be their plan, but I don't think it's going to go that way. And yeah, so we're now in for, years, decades of this incredibly destructive warfare between these tribes. It's horrifying. I did want to bring up one small thing that I also thought was hilarious, that Trump is wearing a cap that says, Trump was right about everything.
My God.
And it reminds me, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but Mark, you've obviously worked in the entertainment industry a lot longer than I have, but I did one movie with a fairly well-known, star. And it was hilarious to me because they referred to themselves in the third person. It wasn't, I want a drink. It was, so I don't want to give this for, but, Trump is thirsty. And it's just such a classic sign of narcissism to refer to yourself in this third person. It's like the royal we or something. It's just, I don't understand how anyone can look at this man and not see, like the archetype of narcissist. It's just stunning to me.
It is. And I made the same analysis earlier. I called him a malignant narcissist, but I did qualify it as well. I am not a psychologist, but it just seems so obvious.
Exactly.
Well, let's cover something separately, and it's something that has been going on for a little bit and now has been officially confirmed, and it's the US government getting a stake in Intel, private or publicly traded company. Basically, the way this has worked, I had to look it up to fully understand it, is that during Biden, when he had his CHIPS Act, part of it included basically giving incentive to companies to produce semiconductors in America, and Trump used this as a leverage to basically acquire a stake ownership in Intel, meaning this hasn't been technically bought, new shares were created. So congratulations to anybody owning Intel, your shares just got diluted by 9%, which includes me, so thank you, Trump. But of course, since the way mixed economy works, people are usually glad about government putting money into private companies. So of course the share of Intel actually went up, although the way US did get the shares is they got it sort of like underpriced, so immediately the American government sort of like made like almost 2 billion. But yeah, Mark, whenever something like this happens, just one more thing. Whenever something like this happens, I always try to look into past and see, did something like this happen before? And unfortunately, yes, basically in the past, American government did acquire stake in public companies, but it was always on temporary basis. Even this is, I suppose, to have like a 5-year sort of thing, although when that 5-year runs out, it doesn't mean necessarily that the government will divest, but it will be talked about again. So yeah, Mark, any thoughts?
Well, I think even more importantly is assessing the Republicans' reaction to this and assessing it within the framework of what the Republicans were supposed to represent. Conservatism, I thought, was supposed to represent the conservation of classical liberalism. They were supposed to stand for free markets and individualism and for constitutional government. When Obama, made the bid in the American car industry and took over a portion of that, it was the Republicans who were screaming that this was way outside the executive power. It was way outside the purview of government to be doing that kind of stuff. And here we have a man taking shares like a mafia boss of a company, literally seizing these shares and taking a piece of the profits through intimidation. I mean, this isn't the only company that he's been intimidating. He's been doing this to several companies, several tech companies, also telling them whom they can hire, where they can franchise, how they can branch out. This is not a Republican form of government with a capitalist economic system. This is what fascism is. This is exactly what fascism is.
Yeah, and when it comes to sort of, yeah, what's important is like, yeah, this might not be unique, but the fact that Republicans are praising this, when I look at the comments, it's like, well, Trump got a good deal. Biden got nothing for putting money or for providing money for Intel, and Trump got us, the collective us that we all own this, like under some kind of system where property is owned publicly rather than privately. I don't know the name for that system, but yeah, it's praised. I mean, Stewart, what like we won't see like Democrats sort of going against it, right?
No, on the contrary, Bernie Sanders has applauded. Um, I don't know why it doesn't give Republicans a moment of pause when their president's policies are being applauded by the most far left members of Congress. I mean, it's stunning to me. They are so enthralled to the personality and to winning. They've abandoned anything resembling principle. It's stunning and very discouraging to me.
Yeah, because something I was thinking about is, yeah, the fact that this hasn't been done with any sort of goal. There is nothing that actually is trying to be achieved by that. Because, I was thinking about, and yeah, the fact is that I think you could make the case that strategically some of America's, or some, like the semiconductors, some part of American strategic industry is located elsewhere, and it might be something we might figure out a way to sort of do it here. But if that is your goal, I think there is a proper way to do it, right? I think the most proper way, even under free market, would be basically a government puts out a public contract. Hey, we need this amount of semiconductors to be produced, and we provide this amount of money, and we will only buy these semiconductors from companies that are producing them in America. Something like that. Basically, make it public, make it like a long contract, like 10 years, and making sure that it is like being done properly, not through weird ways like trying to put tariffs, not through weird ways like acquiring a stake in a company. Just openly say, hey, we need stuff to be made here, and we will provide certain things for that. I mean, yeah, Mark, what do you make of?
Yeah, for a man who's supposed to be draining the swamp, he's using the swamp quite effectively, and he's doing exactly what the swamp does, which is exploit business because the political class controls businesses for their own profit and for power. So, I mean, this isn't really about economics. It's not really about bringing a sensitive material into the United States to be produced. It's about Trump pissing on his territory. It's about him dominating a company and showing dominance. Because I think that's as far as this guy's psychology goes. To be honest with you, if he wanted to increase business in the United States, he could do two things that would immediately increase business in the United States: reduce corporate taxes to zero and tariffs to zero. He could zero out all of those. He could take away corporate subsidies to agro and to big business. He could take that away, and immediately the zombie corporations would go away. Capital would go where it needs to go, and there would be I think an immediate rise, I think, in our economic value. He could also have an open immigration policy where people who are not criminals or don't have communicable diseases can come in and work and live in the United States of America. Instead, he's doing a bunch of self-detonating things simultaneously to please a bunch of conflicting lobby groups and constituencies that all want the levers of power. I mean, the Democrats fall into the same kinds of self-detonating narratives too. But I just gave Trump the way of healing the economy and the beginning of paying off the $37 trillion debt, which he's not going to do. He won't take my advice because he's a dominance guy.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to something like you said, that would require a certain amount of vision, effort, and putting in the work. I looked up into, basically in Slovakia, we had like few like big reforms, and I looked into what they took, and it took like the whole 4 years of basically. In the first 2 years, we are just figuring out how are we going to start it, how it's going to happen, and then the next 2 years are basically like putting it into effect, and then you basically claim the benefits of it over like the next decade. Even if you look into some of the probably worst things for America, like Obamacare, right? It's not like that happened overnight. That was like years effort to make something like that happen, and I don't think Trump could do anything like that. I don't think he would have the patience to get this like broad reform, because look at all the actions he did. He pretty much gave up on Doge very quickly, and it wasn't even managed by him, yet he gave up on it because Elon Musk, spoke out against him. But even when it comes to his tariffs, he pretty much chickened out as soon as it happened. When it came to any negotiations, he chickens out as soon as things get tough. I mean, Stuart, is there like one thing where Trump sort of like actually committed to putting something through? Even repealing Obamacare, right? He couldn't even manage that originally.
No, he has very, very little follow through. I mean, the one thing that he's been somewhat consistent about is cracking down on immigration. And I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of objectivists even, who think this is a good thing. I am not one of those people. I think that long term, that's a disaster for this country. We are.
I also, Stuart, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it's very un-American to advertise new prisons and new detention centers and to tour these and to have politicians tour these places as if this is an achievement of America. It's not. It's anti-America. It's anti-American. It's despicable when I see these tours taking place. I think this isn't America anymore.
No, it's horrifying. The tourists are stopping to take pictures with alligator Alcatraz signs, I mean, it's horrifying. Yeah, Trump may not like it, but the reality is that we are a nation of immigrants. That's America. That's what we've always been. And inconsistently, certainly, we've had some terrible immigration policies in the past, and people point out justifiably that, oh well, Obama and Biden also deported millions of people, and that's true. But I don't think that's a good thing. What we need is some sort of rational immigration policy, and that's just not anything anybody seems to be interested in.
Unfortunately, there's too many vested interests, right? There's unions that would worry about the price of labor falling, which of course would be good for you and I. It raises our standard of living. It also helps people who are traditionally coming from third world countries to raise their standard of living and give them a step up on the rung of wealth, because we all know about 95% of those people are not going to stay at that economic level. They're going to rise and get higher and get higher up the income ladder and get wealthier as they get older and make connections and get job experience. That's the way the world actually works if the politicians will get out of our way.
Yeah, well, the fundamental problem is, as you mentioned earlier, is that Trump views economics, he views life as a zero-sum game. And that's just simply not true. That's just not how it works. I mean, we would still be living in the caves if that were the case. The reality is that things do get better, and trade is a win-win for both people, both parties involved. And so there might be some short-term reduction in the cost of labor, but those people coming in ultimately are generating wealth, and over time it's a benefit for everyone.
Yeah, and somebody earlier in the chat says, couldn't disagree more. Corporate taxes to zero. You don't pay off debt by reducing revenue. I mean, that's why it needs like a broader sort of understanding of like a big reform to the tax system.
Let me amend that then. That would bring more business in, okay? But what has to be done is something that there's no political will to do, which is you start to have to immediately cut entitlements by at least 15 to 20% immediately. And I don't mean a cut in the rate of growth. I mean an actual cut. But now, with over 50% of the people dependent on government for their income, whether it's because they work for the government or because they're getting subsidized by the government, That is an extremely large constituency that no political operative is willing to battle right now. But that's the only way you're going to bring that debt down, is you're going to have to stop spending. You have to cut 99% of what the government does. And Trump acted as if Doge was going to be that instrument. Of course, government efficiency is not what we want. We want government out of anything other than the protection business. That's it. They shouldn't be involved in economic exchanges at all with anyone, unless there's some kind of criminal activity. Somebody's harming somebody else. That's it. That is an extremely economical government. That's a government that doesn't cost a lot of money. I think Salzman might have estimated it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $900 billion. And I don't know that those are reliable figures, but it's certainly a lot less than the $7 trillion omnibus bills that we get now that come down the pike every couple of years. And you know what? You should be able to read the bills, in 20 minutes. Right? The Constitution is a few pages long. The bills that they pass in Congress should be understandable to any person off the streets. That includes the 50% of the population who read below sixth grade level.
Yeah, and even when it comes to like actually providing solutions, even for something like immigration, if every single president has to, and I'm putting like has to in quotes, like deport millions of so-called like illegal immigrants, maybe there is like a fundamental issue that needs to be solved. Why are there millions that you have to sort of deport? And I think the biggest thing that is or at least my understanding is one big thing is, of course, the refugee system. The fact that there is not enough judges to basically put everybody through. The fact that, yeah, you can like claim refugee status and then that has to be dealt with, which of course, if immigration was more free, you wouldn't have to deal with the refugee status because most people would just be let through. You simply check, hey, are you part of some possibly some terrorist organization or some gang, or do you have some disease, or do you not? Okay, no, if not, just go through. I think I've recently seen like what would I have to do as somebody living in Slovakia to actually immigrate into America. It's probably gonna take me like 20 to 30 years if I want. And I'm talking about just like getting a green card to actually be able to stay in America, not even or live, because I could visit easily. But basically, unless you have a lot of money, unless you have somebody, a parent or a child or like a spouse that is already an American citizen or has a green card, it's virtually impossible to go through. Your best bet is to basically go through a lottery. And even then, if you are in a country that is already getting a lot of immigrants to America, tough luck. Basically, Slovakia is one of the countries that has a bit of an edge. So I have about 2% chance to get a green card into America every single year. And this is what people have to go through. Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend the talks and articles of Agustina Vergara Cid at the Ayn Rand Institute. She is from Argentina and has been studying the whole immigration morass. It's stunning. It's stunning. People are like, oh, these people just need to follow the rules. No, you would die of old age, most people, before you were let in the country. So, if you're in a bad situation, you need to get out of where you are. There is no following the rules. The rules would let you die. The rules would keep you out forever. But as you mentioned earlier, Daniel, the problem is that nobody in politics wants to do the work of formulating actual policy and actual plan to get us from the disaster where we are now to something that's actually workable. That's what needs to happen. And, there's no will to make it happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, when people say, they just have to follow the rules, but sometimes the rule is wait. That is the only rule you have
20
to do.
years, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, like I said, right now, if I even want to apply, I think I have to wait until October when the sort of like the lottery even starts. So there is nothing for me to even do right now. So this is the kind of problem where America puts artificial limits to how many people they are letting in. Even with this lottery, there is a magic number that somehow this is the right amount of people that America allows to immigrate. Mark?
Yeah, it's a scarcity mentality. It's a zero-sum mentality where an immigrant comes in and lives at the expense of somebody else, gains at the expense of somebody else. It's not true economically. It's not true in reality. I mean, a person that comes in and adds productive value to the country is a asset to all of us. And that's not even a justification for them coming into the country. You should have a right, an individual right to go from a worse place to a better place. I mean, freedom of movement, the capacity to do that should be respected by the source of individual rights, America, above all. And the fact that it's not, again, is just an advertisement to the rest of the world that America is not what it claims to be.
Somebody says ending the welfare state is the first step. Again, immigrants don't get welfare.
Yeah.
Immigrants are usually the ones that actually contribute to the system much more, especially with illegal immigrants who usually if the oftentimes what I looked into, illegal immigrants, if they want to work, they need a social security number, which usually means it's not their social security number, it's somebody else's. So they basically have to do identity theft and they cannot receive the benefits afterwards because it's not their identity. Not to mention, if immigrants are coming at the age of, in their working age, you've already a lot of welfare is not being spent on them because the biggest amount of welfare that is being spent on people is in the developing age, so before 18, and then in the retirement. If you cut off that working age, you just save so much money on actually providing this amount of welfare. So again, like this is not corresponding with reality. Not to mention, okay, don't give welfare to immigrants. Nobody's calling for that. This has an easy solution. This idea of like we have to end the welfare state first is it's a red herring. This is obviously not the case.
Yeah, a much smaller percentage of immigrants, especially the illegal ones, are in the welfare system. It's a little more complicated when you get to sanctuary cities and sanctuary states where they're providing housing for these people. Now, that of course makes the news, it makes the headlines, and it makes other people in the country resentful because they see immigrants as a parasitic class. By the same token, these people aren't allowed to work. So they're forced into a position where they have to go into the black market in order to make some form of living if they want to not be living off the taxpayers' largesse. So they're sort of in a no-win situation, and the government puts them in a no-win situation and creates the very problems that they claim to be trying to solve. As usual, I mean, this seems to be what the government does. They create a regulation that's a regulation already created a problem. And then another regulation to solve that problem upon another regulation upon another regulation. So yeah. Also, if we privatize schools, then you wouldn't have people complaining about immigrants coming into schools and taking advantage of schooling. You probably could lower property taxes for everybody as well if school were private and those people who had children paid for their children, as opposed to people who didn't have children subsidizing the people with children.
Yeah, and just to add something, Mark, you mentioned a bit earlier about sort of like the freedom of movement. Well, I think much more important thing is the freedom of association. If, let's say, Mark wants to hire me for something or wants to invite me for a dinner in America, why is it America's business besides the sort of making sure I'm not coming there to commit crimes, but besides that, what is it the business of American government to basically sort of regulate these interactions? Stuart?
It's not. And, I think that's an aspect that often gets neglected in this is these immigration laws don't just violate the rights of the immigrants, although, they do. But yeah, my rights as an American to associate, to hire the people that I want. If I have a small business and I need labor, how dare the government say, no, you can't hire this person. You have to hire a much more expensive American person. Why is that the government's business?
Somebody says this is anarchy. I mean, every time I say that, yeah, American government should ensure I'm not part of a terrorist organization, or I'm not carrying some disease, or I'm not here to
how is it anarchy? I don't understand how it's anarchy, Daniel. Can you explain that to me?
I think to try to steal, man, it's probably, I mean, people think we advocate for open borders, that basically people can just like march in through and do whatever they want, which I'm saying, there should be check at the border. I'm just maybe saying that maybe I shouldn't have to wait 20 to 30 years to be able to get the green card in America. Maybe we can cut it down to 10 at the start, and we'll see how to go from there. This is, I'm advocating for marginal change, not some kind of like complete destruction of the current system right now.
It's not anarchy, though, to advocate for open immigration. I mean, by open immigration, you keep out the bad guys to the best of your ability. There's certainly a lot of countries don't have records that are accessible for that kind of thing. And you keep out people with communicable diseases, and everybody else here who wants to become a productive member of society should be allowed to become a productive member of society. All right. So you can't preemptively pushing people back is to treat them as if they're criminals, is to violate their rights. And I don't want to say human rights, but their individual right to free movement. That's what, look, once they come into the United States, apparently they say that immigrants fall under a different type of legal system and they don't have the same protections under the Constitution. I'm sorry, you do. Once you are under the umbrella of the American government, you are protected by the Bill of Rights. You are understood to be a human being, a sovereign being with individual rights. And individual rights means freedom of action. And freedom of action includes movement from one place to another, right? Thank God we don't have to get permission to go to Tennessee if I want to go to Tennessee, or to Texas. Why make it any different from a country from just because it's Mexico over the border? Now, that's not anarchy. That's just a country that respects liberty, and of course arrest people if they start harming people, if they start committing crimes, arrest them, deport them. That's fine.
Somebody says, nope, only citizens. Well, this little thing called the Constitution would disagree with you. But
nope, only citizens. Only citizens what?
I guess have a privilege to, I guess, laws to properly apply, or the rights to...
Daniel, I travel all over the world, and I find more Americanism in other countries with individuals like you, for example, than I would on the campus of Columbia University, or on the majority of young folks between the ages of 18 and 25 who are voting and have sympathy for socialism. There's not Americanism there, and those people are citizens who have the capacity to affect the political arguments right now. So give me the immigrant who's fully Americanized. Give me that immigrant who understands individual rights and just wants to make a decent life for himself and his family, over, the blue-haired, pimply-faced, screaming socialist who comes from a well-off family, but will vote for the Bernie Sanders types of the world who want to egregiously violate our rights. I'm sorry.
I would add, I would also take them over the blue-haired old lady who is a diehard MAGA person.
Absolutely.
And so, there's lots of people in this country who do not understand what America represents, unfortunately.
And they have the power to vote, and that person
and they are voting, yes.
Right. So they affect the political process. The immigrant who's just working here is not affecting the political process. So let them be.
Well, with that, Mark, any last thoughts from you, either on John Bolton rate or the Intel ownership by the American government, or anything else we talked about today?
Yeah, the
and
government
also,
has no place.
Find you?
The government has no place in economics, so they should not be owning shares in any company at all. They shouldn't be telling companies where they can hire people, where they can franchise, what they can build. They shouldn't be regulating companies in any way, providing standards for companies. All of this is provided by the producers and in free exchange with their customers. They create the standards themselves. So the government should be out of economics entirely. The president has no right to be using the executive branch of the government to bully political enemies the way he is doing that. He has no right to unilaterally determine tariff policy either. This is a legislative thing. So let's return to the separation of powers. That is the way in which your individual freedoms will be preserved. And if you want to argue with me about this, especially objectivists, you can find me at Mark R. Pellegrino on X. I'll argue with you so long as you're polite. If you're not polite, I'll choke you if you're around me. I don't care. Mark Ross Pelly is also my Instagram. If you just want jujitsu, dogs, cats, and funny things, that's what you'll find there. And you can also find me on Capitalist Corner every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. That might be competing with your show a little bit here, Daniel, but Capitalist Corner, we talk about the news from a capitalist perspective, and we have a good time doing it. So join us if it's not too much of an imposition on Daniel's audience. And we're about to start a Patreon. Go on my Patreon and start the intersection of philosophy and psychology. So we're going to start a series on that pretty soon. We'll be doing that once a week. So check it out. Objectivists, non-objectivists, you're all welcome.
And you'll be able to find that in the chat. Stuart, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I just echo what Mark said. I think that conservatives need to wake up and realize that the values that this administration is putting out there are not conservative values. They're not liberty values. They need to get out of the tribalist mentality that they've gotten into and start advocating for actual ideas, for good ideas, and not just support their guy. You can find me at stuartmargolis.substack.com, and I'm also on Facebook, and like Mark, I will engage if people are polite.
Well, with that, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.